last 18 years, we've had the privilege of presenting to you some of India's best startups. And today we're back at a company that we've been tracking for almost 10 years plus. In fact, today it is one of India's most recognized and coveted startups that's truly gone global as well. We're talking about Zomato, and I'm here at the Zomato headquarters in Gurgaon in the National Capital Region. Now, there are several firsts to Zomato's credit. To start with, it was one of the first companies in India to look at menu scanning, and that's how it essentially started as a listings business. It then moved on to becoming a search and discovery app, and today it is a transactions company with 75% of its revenues being driven by the food delivery business. What's also interesting is that Deepinder Goyal has been trying to create a merit-based, gender-neutral organization, and a step in that effort is a mandatory 26-week paternity leave option. So the onus of parenting is not just thrust upon the women, but it can be equally shared by the men. To talk about Zomato's plans ahead, as well as its mission to elevate the restaurant business and improve the workplace, joining me on this special Young Turks program is Deepinder Goyal. Deepinder, thanks very much for joining us on Young Turks. It's a pleasure to have you back. As I said, we've been tracking Zomato pretty much since its inception. It's been a little over, what, 10 years now. Do you remember the time that you were on the show first?
Yes, I do. I was in Noida, yeah.
And a lot has changed since then.
Yeah.
You know, we're here at your headquarters in Gurgaon, and I distinctly remember your mission statement was that you want to elevate the restaurant business. It started off as scanning menus. It became then about search and discovery, so restaurant listings. It's today a transactions-driven company. If I were to ask you about what will be the key priorities for Zomato from here on, what would those be?
I think we've changed our statement, the mission statement, and it's called Better Food for More People now. And what it means is that we want to actually make a difference to what people eat and not how people eat. How is just means to an end, right? And we are fighting the food ordering battle. We are also fighting dining out. But all of this gives us the flexibility to influence users' choices.
Okay.
And then we got the hyper pure business where we are working with farmers directly, very, very closely with them, and trying to teach them how to produce clean stuff.
Okay.
And then bring it back to restaurants so that people can eat.
So I'll get to hyper pure in just a second, because that is one of the new pillars that you're betting on. But let's talk about the delivery business. Is it likely to now become a two-horse race between you and Swiggy? I'm wearing red today, but if I was wearing orange, would I have been allowed inside the Zomato headquarters?
I think over the last couple of years, it's been a two-horse race, like 3 times, but then somebody else has come in and then they've gone. No, we don't know. Like life changes every day, right?
Yeah.
So, and all it takes to fight in that particular space is money.
So this is a caution. I mean, this business, the food delivery space in India, from what 400 odd players now to down to 4 odd players, is a cautionary tale where ambition has not necessarily kept pace with execution. What would you say is going to be the key as you slug it out in this space?
I think there's no slugging it out going on anymore.
No, there's no slugging it out?
There's no slugging it out.
What do you mean?
The market is very, very rational.
The market is very rational, so 50%
people.
is yours, 50% is theirs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
more or less.
But the aspiration would be to get that 50% as well?
Of course it is, but we're not fighting in a stupid way. We're trying to do the right things.
Okay. So when you say you're not trying to fight it in any stupid way, you're trying to do the right things, explain to me what that means. Which basically means that the cash burn is not going to be as crazy as one has gotten used to, not just in the food delivery business, but across transaction-driven businesses in India.
So I think let's actually think of it in the context of a cricket match. There are 2 ways to win a match. One is to fix a match.
Okay.
The other is to actually have a great team, do good work, put in the you should put in the hard work and then you win. So I think both the companies are right now trying to do the right thing, putting in the hard work.
Putting in the hard work and
trying to win.
And trying to win and putting in the money as well.
That's something that has to be done. It's not something which is being used to win the market.
But how important is it? Because, you know, there is so much sort of focus on valuation, which I know that you don't necessarily look at business from the valuation prism. But, you know, is it a $3 billion company? Is it a $3.3 billion company? What's the difference between the two of you? I mean, you know, how do you look at this metric?
I think it's a race, right? It's actually an infinite game. So at some point they will be ahead of us, sometimes we'll be ahead of them. And it's not just those guys. Like, we actually compete in 13 markets, so many spaces. So it's, for us, it's about a lot of people. So, and it's sometimes we are ahead, sometimes someone else is ahead. It's all, it goes on.
You're absolutely right about that. But let's talk about some of the metrics. And I appreciate the fact that Zomato is one of the very few unlisted companies that actually puts out details, which you know, we find very difficult to access details from other companies. So I appreciate that fact. Let's talk about the cash burn, and you know, you give the details in your annual report. How much further can we see the cash burn declining, and what will lead to the cash burn declining if you believe that this is a rational battle?
Investments is also another term for cash burn, right? So, I mean, if we are able to raise a lot of money, and we will also want to invest it in the right places to actually grow the business faster. That's it. So cash burn is up to you, whether you want to do it or not.
So you want to do it clearly at this point in time?
Investment, not burn.
Investment. And when we talk about investment, what is the kind of investment outlay or plan that you have, especially when you talk about greater penetration?
So there are three different pillars of the business, right? The food ordering business, dining out, and hyper pure. We think of all three in a very different way, and different P&Ls as well. So they all have their own growth strategies. And dining out and hyper pure is actually a profitable business for us. The food delivery business is where we are trying to acquire a lot of customers. And most of the burn is on the customer acquisition cost. And we're launching maybe I think 20 cities a week. So that's costly.
20 cities a week is what you're launching as far as the food delivery business is concerned. So, you know, in terms of the kind of investments that are required, especially in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, I would imagine that it would be lower than what you require for some of the top metros. And so, which means that you would probably, your return on investments would be higher there.
Yes and no. It's actually harder to set up those markets because there's a lot of travel costs, and people have to go there, because it's very hard to find talent within those markets. So we have to send people, and then you have hotel expenses, and when it scales, that's a lot of money burned. Right. So.
Well, was this a surprise for you that, you know, you're seeing so much traction in cities like Kolhapur and you know, Kota and all? I mean, you know, one wouldn't have imagined that to be the case.
Like last year, I think in our board meeting, we said that 20 cities in India is where the market lies, right? And that's it. It's not going to go beyond 20. And then somebody just pushed, can you guys try like the 200 city, right? So, and we didn't even try the 200 city. We tried, I think, Nagpur. And Nagpur is not the 200. No, it's not. Just like maybe 30 or 35th city. And then we saw like a lot of volume and growth. And the interesting thing out of that city was that 78% people who ordered food from Zomato had never ordered food in their life before. Not over the phone, not even on an app. Of course, not on an app. So 78% people had never ordered food. So that's when we thought that we are trying to create that we are actually going to create a whole new market for ourselves.
And so you're in 200 plus cities now?
We are in 310-ish. I don't know. I mean, today the number would have changed.
Yes, today the number would have changed. But tell me, you know, what is the biggest challenge that you see today as you've grown to this sort of scale, and especially when you talk about the traction coming in from the tier 2, tier 3 cities? I mean, what are the kind of bottlenecks and the challenges that you have to live with on a daily basis? Let's talk about some of the challenges that you face today, which is a holiday. So you've also got a lot of traffic coming in, but not necessarily enough on the supply side.
Yeah. I think the peaks are the hardest for us to manage. Even like dinner peaks every day. Like almost everybody orders between 8:20 p.m. and 8:35 p.m.
Okay.
And that's when you got to process all the orders. So you have to have a lot of people on the road, and you're never able to take all the orders in that time, because in order to take the last 2.5% of the orders, like in a day, during that time, when that's a peak, we would incur about 30% more cost.
Wow.
So you have to let go of those orders in order to maintain some balance on cost.
Okay.
And in days like when it rains, order volume spike, but our riders can't
deliver.
Can't do what they do. So we got less people on the road, but we got more orders. And today it's Eid, and then there's going to be the match, and we are like 20% short.
So the orders are pouring in, but
orders
you're
are
short
like 40-45% up.
Yeah.
But we are 20% short on supply.
So how do you then deal with customer satisfaction? I mean, how do you ensure that you keep clients happy even while you're turning them away?
We do the best we do, that's it. I mean, there's nobody who can do anything about this, right? I need 60% more people just for the day. That's about 100,000 more people on the road. Like, you can't find 100,000 people for one day.
Yeah, you can't find 100,000 people for one day. But, how significant is, and I know that you've always maintained that it's not valuation, but the love of the customer that matters to you as the most significant metric. What have you done to ensure that you in fact deliver on that promise? I mean, what are the many changes that you've done as you've scaled to ensure that you deliver on that promise?
I think there are a couple of things. I think the most important thing is earlier we sometimes used to take an order and then used to find a rider who is free. Like maybe a rider would get free and then we would allocate that order to that person. But nowadays we only take an order when we know
when you have a rider.
When we know that this order is going to get to the customer on time.
Okay.
Right? Of course you go wrong. You still go wrong. It's the wild west out there, right? So,
it is.
But you go wrong. But nowadays we tell people that we cannot take an order right now. So you tell people upfront that you're not in a serviceable area right now. So that they can go to some other app or like order from the restaurant directly or maybe cook at home.
Or maybe cook at home, yes. Not necessarily great for your business, but yes. But one of the things that interests me in the manner in which you're running things here is that there is a greater degree of transparency. And I pointed that out even when you put out your annual report and you give out details about the metrics and the milestones achieved. And it's also in the way that you deal with your customers. I think there is a much more open communication that, hey, we made a mistake, or hey, we can't help you today, or whatever the case may be. How critical is that? Is that sort of driving, operationally what you're trying to do? Transparency and better, more effective communication.
I think it's all the same thread, right? If you're not transparent about your numbers with even the people inside the organization, you can't really expect them to be transparent with the customers as well, right? So if you want trust, you have to be transparent as well. The other thing is we are like 5,000 people, and I want to share every single detail of what's going on at Zomato with all of these people. So, and I know stuff is going to leak anyway. So
preempted.
We should rather put it out there.
Yeah, no, I get that. But let's talk a little bit about the various pillars, and let's start by talking about Zomato Gold and the membership side of the business. What's the sort of next aspiration and target there?
We are bringing Zomato Gold to the ordering side very soon.
Okay.
So that should be big, I think, because a lot of our customers have been asking for that for a while. But right now we're getting around to doing that.
And when are you planning to launch that?
Maybe 3 to 4 weeks. Within this month of June, we should be able to do this.
And in terms of the number of active subscribers that you have, where do you see that in the next few years?
So we are
And because that's also globally something that you're pushing.
We're in 7 countries. Zomato Gold is in 7 countries right now. I think we're right now about 1.25 million members across these 7 countries. We're hoping to get to about 5 million by end of this year, in the next 6 months.
Okay.
let's see. I mean,
so 5 million globally on Zomato Gold is
India will contribute to most of the growth.
I distinctly remember several times over where you said that, look, we're neutral. We're not going to get into the food business ourselves because then we're up against our own partners. Does that still hold?
Of course.
Yeah.
That's why we're not doing our own brands or kitchens, and that's why we are just putting restaurants in touch with people, and therefore, and that's actually more scalable as well. Domino's has about like 800 restaurants in the country right now, and it's the most valuable restaurant company in the country. 800 is nothing compared to what the India needs.
Yeah.
So we need about 1 million more restaurants, and we cannot build it by ourselves. So even if we build 1,000 or like let's say 5,000 of them, what have we moved? Nothing.
So you're not getting into the food business. Okay. So is this then going to continue to be an experiment that you dabble with, or is this something that you seriously intend to take forward?
Experiments, we take them forward once they start working, right?
So it's not working currently?
It's very, very early.
Very, very early. The fact that Travis Kalanick, for instance, is looking at both China and India and has already gotten started in China on the cloud kitchen front, what does that mean to you?
I mean,
will that aid your aspiration in this space?
I think when you look at the amount of money Travis has, this is just a crafts project for him right now. I don't think so.
A crafts project, okay. Okay. So, okay, cloud kitchen at this point in time, a crafts business for the industry, including you. But hyper pure, and that sort of is the farm to fork approach that you're trying to adopt. Tell me a little bit more about that and how you intend to play that out.
So we're working with farmers, and we're sort of we know how much restaurants need on an everyday basis. So we are placing orders to farmers, and we are telling them that we don't need pesticides, we don't need any kind of antibiotics in the meat, right? So all of those specifications. So we are bringing fresher and better food to the restaurants. And right now the scale is what it is, but eventually it should grow. And we're going to start putting out hyper pure inside stickers on to restaurant listings on Zomato, so that people, when they go to a restaurant, they know that this restaurant would have clean food at its source.
Which is what you tried to do even with hygiene standards for restaurants early on. So that's what you're hoping to do now as far as...
Hygiene is there in like 10,000 restaurants in India right now.
Yeah.
So it's working well.